All of you know that Google is the largest search engine in the world. It's been this way for close to 20 years. I recently started a new ad campaign with Google on an account that I've had for over 10 years. And just last week, we were off to a great start, made a good amount of money, and then abruptly my ad was suspended and my account folded up. They couldn't even give me concrete reasons, even though I know for a fact I did everything by the book. Come to find out, I'm not the only one, which is the reason for this second video. There's going to be a whole series of videos because I am, again, not the only one. But before I get into any of that, make sure that you hit the bell notification, subscribe, and also hit the like button. Fair use.
Google has directed the flow of web traffic for decades. In the process, it's helped its parent company, Alphabet, become one of the most valuable businesses on the planet.
Google has accumulated unprecedented power over communication and information online.
And the worry is that because Google uses its dominance in one area to succeed in another, it's not a level playing field.
And that is really the core reason why we have seen these different lawsuits emerge over the last couple of years.
The US government is approaching year 5 of its sprawling investigation into Google.
I think it's quite possible that what we see come out of at least one of these cases is a breakup of Google.
Many of the biggest firms in tech drew antitrust scrutiny in the late 2010s, but Google, so far, is the only company to end up in federal court. Will the US government break up Google? And if so, how will that impact investors and the public? The government's first major antitrust case against Google began in October 2020. It focused on Google Search.
Search and advertising is Google's bread and butter. It has its moonshot projects, but search and advertising pays for all of that.
Out of $165 billion in revenue, 2/3 of that is search and advertising. Wow.
People who use Google Search don't pay with money. Instead, Google makes money by collecting user data and selling ads.
When we use Google as a search engine, we expose ourselves to extensive surveillance. We enable Google to use information that Google derives from our queries for personalized advertising. That's at least under the default settings.
The government's complaints focused on agreements Google made with companies like Apple.
What Google had done over the course of the past decade and a half is entered into these exclusive default agreements with other competitors, potential competitors like Apple. They entered into an agreement worth about $20 billion per year now that makes Google the exclusive search engine on all Apple devices in the Apple Safari browser. They maintained those agreements with mobile device manufacturers. If you get a phone that's made by Samsung, it has an exclusive revenue share agreement with Google so that Google Search is the only search engine that appears on that cell phone when you start it up.
Well, that was very beneficial that they could get that exclusive deal with Apple, don't you think?
The regulators believe that Google is able to keep that dominance in part because of these sweetheart deals.
For example, some Apple executives expressed interest in using the privacy-focused search engine DuckDuckGo as the default option while in private browsing mode. But the terms of their agreement with Google prevented that idea from taking root.
Google's made it very difficult to adopt DuckDuckGo. Like on Android, it's 15 to 20 steps to make DuckDuckGo the search default there.
Search engines are built with software that can crawl and rank websites on the internet. The process can cost billions of dollars if done at a scale to compete with Google. Google controls about 88% of the search engine market in the United States.
Nobody can enter this market and credibly compete with Google.
The Google search trial included depositions from high-profile witnesses, like Microsoft chief executive Satya Nadella. The presiding federal judge, Amit Mehta, determined that Google, quote, is a monopolist and has acted as one to maintain its monopoly.
Throughout that trial, we were hearing so many people talk about how Google search has gotten so much worse over the past decade.
Google does not, when it comes to local search, show the information it determines is the best. It simply self-preferences its own inferior content above everyone else.
The government's second major complaint began in 2023. with a focus on online ad technology.
Back almost 20 years now, Google had acquired businesses like DoubleClick to consolidate the entire ad tech ecosystem. If you're a website, you plug into a publisher ad server. If you're an advertiser, you plug into an ad network on the other side, and then you meet on this exchange in the middle. And because Google has maintained, allegedly, a monopoly across each of those properties, it is able to take 20 cents of every dollar that passes through its advertiser exchange. And that is far higher than any other ad exchange on the market because Google really is kind of unavoidable here.
Did you hear what he just said, that Google is unavoidable here? That's the reason why I made the first video. That's the reason why I'm making this video. That's the reason why I'm so fucking upset, because they're unavoidable.
We're actually on the brink of having to stop producing content from our website. We just don't make any money anymore. And the gaming industry has the lowest ad rates possible. So we actually need traffic to generate any kind of revenue. There's a lot of opinions I have about it. I generally think Google is becoming an unfair place, and they're not giving any spotlight or a voice to those that are actually creating better and fun, enjoyable websites with genuinely experienced and human written content. They are having a bias towards those that want to spend money, and they have a bias to please their shareholders, which means websites like us won't be around for much longer.
As you can see, there are not just many of us, there are millions of us.
To organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful for all. This is the original mission statement created by Larry and Sergey, who started Google out of their dorm in 1995 at Stanford University. I decided to do some digging, and as you can see, this report was created on December 31st of 2023 and holds a lot of unique information that I don't think we know about. Primarily, the first thing that I found when scanning through this was that Google is referring to itself as an ad platform more times than it's referring to itself as a search platform. In fact, there's more than 50 references to it talking about its advertising revenue and its advertising products, and less than 30 references to it talking about its search engine capabilities. Scanning through this same document, I found something interesting. I quote, "Many websites violate or attempt to violate our guidelines, including by seeking to inappropriately rank higher in search results than other search engines' assessment of their relevance and utility would rank them. Such efforts have affected and may continue to affect the quality of content on our platforms and lead them to display false, misleading, or undesirable content." On page 17, we can see an additional quote. It says, "Problematic content on our platforms, including low-quality, user-generated content, web spam, content farms, and other violations of our guidelines could affect the quality of our services, which could cause harm to our reputation and deter our current and potential users from using our products and services." In 2010, Google's advertising revenue was $28 billion. In 2023, it ended the fiscal year at $237 billion in advertising revenue. What's most shocking about these figures is not how much it's grown since 2010, however, how much it's grown since 2020. In fact, in 2020, it earned $146 billion in advertising revenue, and in 2023, almost $100 billion jump, and that's only within the span of 3 years. The question becomes, how did it jump so much in 3 years?
A fairly big assumption that many people make is that when they think of Google's revenues, they think of YouTube. I did the same thing myself. I thought YouTube is a fairly large platform. I see a lot of advertising that's happening through YouTube, and so I would assume that a lot of these revenues that I just covered are probably coming from YouTube. However, I started to do some research and realized that a majority of the revenue that comes out of Google or into Google is actually still coming from search, and that surprised me quite substantially. In fact, some of the data that we can see here in this chart suggests that actually most, if not almost all, of the revenue that Google makes is still coming from their search product.
What did he just say? Did you hear him? he said that even now, the vast majority of Google's revenue is still coming from their search products. 20 some odd years later, the difference now is that they're not ethical. They're actually competing against their own customers. And that's what has happened to me. And that's why my account was suspended, because they looked at me as a competition as opposed to a customer. And this is not the end of this by any means. But let me say something. If this video has been of value to you, and my channel as a whole, you've learned how to make money in crypto, in at the very minimum one way, shape or form, show your appreciation and your support in the way that has the most impact, and that of course is financially. And you can do so by contributing any amount of stable coins, USDT or USDC, to our address in the description of this video. What it does, it helps us to continue to be able to make life-changing, motivational, inspiring content for all of you. As you can see, as of today, 233 videos. This is 234. All of them, with the exception of these videos about Google's bitch ass, are about making money and saving money in crypto. If you haven't already, sign up for your own BuyFi account. They're the fastest growing exchange on the planet. Use my link, you're going to get free crypto and save on your transaction fees for the life of your account. So next time, get in there and make it happen.